What if much of your unhappiness comes from trying to be liked? What if your past does not control your future as much as you think? And what if freedom begins the moment you stop living according to other people's expectations? These are some of the challenging ideas at the heart of The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. The book is presented as a conversation between a philosopher and a young man. The young man is frustrated with life. He believes people are shaped by their past experiences, that personality is difficult to change, and that happiness depends heavily on how other people treat us. The philosopher disagrees. Drawing heavily from the ideas of psychologist Alfred Adler, he argues that people can change, that our past does not completely determine us, and that many of our struggles come from the way we relate to other people. At first, these ideas sound almost unreasonable. But as the conversation continues, the book builds a radically different way of thinking about freedom, relationships, confidence, and happiness. Let us explore its most important lessons. Lesson 1. Your past does not decide your future. One of the book's most controversial ideas appears immediately. The philosopher argues that trauma and past experiences do not mechanically determine the rest of our lives. This does not mean painful experiences are unimportant. It means two people can experience similar events and still respond very differently. According to the book, human behavior is not only explained by causes from the past, but also by goals in the present. This is called a teleological way of thinking. Consider someone who says, "I cannot trust people because I was betrayed in the past." A cause and effect explanation says the betrayal created the inability to trust. The Adlerian interpretation asks, what purpose might avoiding trust serve now? Perhaps avoiding closeness protects the person from being hurt again. The past event matters, but so does the meaning given to it. If the past completely determines your present, change becomes almost impossible. But if you participate in the meaning you give your experiences, you have some power to reinterpret them. The book does not say you should forget painful experiences. It says your history is not necessarily a prison sentence. You cannot rewrite what happened, but you can influence what role it plays in what happens next. Lesson 2. People can change. The young man in the book argues that personality is fixed. Some people are confident, some anxious, some sociable, and others withdrawn. That is simply who they are. The philosopher challenges this, suggesting that what we call personality may often be a chosen lifestyle, a familiar pattern of thinking and behaving. Imagine someone who describes themselves as shy. They may think, "I was born this way, so I cannot speak confidently with people." But the philosopher asks whether shyness also provides certain advantages. If you never speak up, you reduce the risk of embarrassment. If you never approach someone, you cannot be rejected. If you never attempt something difficult, you can preserve the belief that you might have succeeded. Some behaviors protect us. They may make life smaller, but they also make it feel safer. Change is frightening because it introduces uncertainty. Even an unhappy life can feel comfortable when it is familiar. A different life requires different choices. The book argues that change begins when you decide your existing way of living is no longer useful. You do not have to become a completely different person overnight. You begin by choosing differently where you once acted automatically. Lesson 3. Many problems are interpersonal problems. One of Adler's most famous ideas, emphasized throughout the book, is that many human problems are connected to interpersonal relationships. Think about insecurity. Why do we feel inadequate? Often because we compare ourselves with someone else. Jealousy, embarrassment, status anxiety, loneliness, competition, resentment, approval seeking, and feelings of inferiority are all deeply connected to relationships. The book asks us to imagine what life would be like if there were no other people. Would you worry about being unattractive, unsuccessful, or having an unimpressive career or home? Many things we call personal problems depend on comparison. This does not mean relationships are bad. Humans need connection. The point is that relationships become painful when organized around competition, control, and approval. When you see life as a competition, everyone becomes a potential rival. Someone else's success feels like evidence of your failure. Their beauty makes you feel less attractive, and their achievements make your life seem inadequate. The book proposes another way. Instead of viewing other people as competitors, learn to see them as companions. You do not need to defeat someone else to live a meaningful life. Lesson 4. Understand feelings of inferiority. Almost everyone experiences feelings of inferiority. You meet someone more talented, more successful, more confident, more attractive, more experienced, and suddenly you feel that you are not enough. The book argues that inferiority itself is not necessarily harmful. In fact, it can motivate growth. If you recognize that someone is more skilled than you may be inspired to practice. If you realize that your health could improve, you may begin exercising. The problem begins when feelings of inferiority become an inferiority complex. Instead of saying, "I am not good at this yet," you begin saying, "I cannot succeed because I am not good enough." One encourages action. The other becomes an excuse for avoiding action. The book also describes another pattern, the superiority complex. Sometimes people who feel deeply insecure try to appear superior. They constantly mention their achievements. They seek status. They criticize others. They exaggerate their importance. They need people to recognize how successful, intelligent, or special they are. The book suggests that genuine confidence does not require constantly proving superiority. If you truly accept yourself, you do not need to spend your life demonstrating that you are above everyone else. The goal is not to feel superior. The goal is to stop measuring your worth through comparison. Lesson 5. Stop living for recognition. One of the book's central arguments is that the desire for recognition can quietly control your life. As children, many of us learn to associate approval with good behavior. Do something right and you receive praise. Do something wrong and you receive criticism. Over time, it becomes easy to build your life around the question, "What will people think of me?" You choose a career your family respects, dress for approval, avoid expressing certain opinions, hide parts of your personality, and constantly monitor whether people like you. From the outside, your life may appear successful, but internally, you are living according to someone else's expectations. The philosopher argues that if your main goal is recognition, you are not truly free. Other people become the judges of your life, and your behavior depends on their reactions. Yet, you cannot control whether someone approves of you. You can be kind and still be disliked, work hard and still be criticized, or explain yourself perfectly and still be misunderstood. The pursuit of universal approval is impossible. Trying to achieve it creates anxiety because you are attempting to control something that does not belong to you, which leads to one of the most important ideas in the entire book. Lesson 6. Separate your tasks. The book calls this the separation of tasks. Whenever you face an interpersonal problem, ask, whose task is this? Your actions are your task. Another person's reaction is theirs. Suppose you decide to change careers. You can research, prepare financially, develop skills, and make a responsible decision. Those are your tasks. Your parents may approve, feel disappointed, or criticize you. Their reaction belongs to them. You can listen respectfully, but you cannot build your life around managing their emotions. Another example is parenting. A parent may want a child to study, but ultimately, studying is the child's task. The parent can provide support and resources, but cannot learn on the child's behalf. Problems arise when we interfere with other people's tasks or allow them to interfere with ours. The separation of tasks creates psychological boundaries. Ask yourself, who will ultimately experience the consequences of this decision? Usually that tells you whose task it is. This does not mean becoming cold or selfish. You can care about someone without controlling them, offer help without taking ownership of their life, and respect their feelings without surrendering responsibility for your own choices. Lesson 7. Freedom requires the courage to be disliked. This is the idea that gives the book its title. If you want to live freely, you need the courage to be disliked, not because being disliked is desirable, or you should deliberately offend people, but because authentic living creates the possibility of disagreement. The moment you make your own choices, someone may dislike them. If you say no, someone may be disappointed. If you establish a boundary, someone may call you selfish. If you pursue a different career, someone may think you are making a mistake. If you stop trying to impress people, someone may lose interest in you. The only guaranteed way to avoid criticism is to give others control over your behavior, and even then, you may still be criticized. Freedom has a cost, accepting that other people are allowed to have opinions about you. You do not have to fight every opinion, correct every misunderstanding, or convince everyone that you are a good person. Your responsibility is to act according to your principles. Their evaluation belongs to them. This is one of the book's hardest lessons because we naturally want belonging and approval. The goal is not to stop caring about people, but to stop making approval a requirement for living your own life. Lesson 8. Do not build relationships vertically. The book makes an important distinction between vertical and horizontal relationships. Vertical relationships are based on hierarchy. One person is above. The other is below. One person judges. The other is judged. Praise can even become part of this structure. When you constantly praise someone from a position of superiority, the hidden message can become, "I am qualified to evaluate you." The book encourages horizontal relationships instead. In a horizontal relationship, people may have different roles, responsibilities, abilities, or experience, but their human worth is equal. A manager and an employee have different responsibilities. A teacher and a student have different levels of knowledge. A parent and child have different roles. But none of these differences make one person more valuable as a human being. Instead of manipulating people through praise or punishment, horizontal relationships emphasize encouragement. Encouragement says, "I respect your ability to make choices. I appreciate your contribution. I am here if you need support." The difference may seem subtle, but it changes the nature of the relationship. Strong relationships are not built by controlling people. They are built through mutual respect. Lesson 9. Accept yourself instead of chasing perfection. Many people believe confidence means thinking, "I can do anything." But the book offers a different idea. Self-acceptance means recognizing what you can change and what you cannot. Suppose you receive a score of 60 out of 100. Self-affirmation might say, "I am actually 100. The score is wrong." Self-acceptance says, "I am currently at 60. What can I realistically improve from here?" You do not need to pretend you have no weaknesses or convince yourself that you are extraordinary. You simply begin with reality. Maybe you are not skilled enough for the job you want. Accept it, then learn. Maybe you made a serious mistake. Accept it, then determine what you can repair. Maybe you cannot control how someone feels about you. Accept it, then focus on your own conduct. Self-acceptance creates movement because energy is no longer wasted. Pretending reality is different. Perfectionism can become another way of avoiding action. If you must be perfect before beginning, you never begin. If you must be certain before deciding, you never decide. The book encourages the courage to be imperfect and still participate in life. Lesson 10. Trust others without trying to control them. Another part of healthy relationships is trust. But the book distinguishes trust from guarantees. If you only trust someone when you know with certainty that they will never disappoint you, that is not really trust. It is a transaction based on conditions. Trust always involves some vulnerability. You cannot completely control what another person will do. This does not mean remaining in harmful situations or ignoring evidence of dishonesty. It means recognizing that genuine relationships cannot be built through constant suspicion and control. If someone betrays your trust, what they do is their task. What you choose afterward is yours. You may forgive. You may establish boundaries. You may end the relationship. But you do not need to spend your entire life attempting to eliminate all uncertainty. A life with zero interpersonal risk would also be a life with very little genuine intimacy. Lesson 11. Happiness comes from contribution. The book eventually asks a major question. If we stop chasing approval, competition, and superiority, what should replace them? The answer is contribution. People need a sense that they belong and that their existence has value. But that sense of value does not have to come from praise. It can come from knowing that you contribute to others. Contribution does not need to be dramatic. You do not have to become famous, wealthy, or historically important. You may contribute by raising a child, helping a colleague, doing your work carefully, listening to a friend, supporting your family, creating something useful, making someone's day slightly easier. The key is that your sense of worth shifts from, "Do people admire me?" to, "Am I participating meaningfully?" This creates a very different life. You no longer require applause every time you do something worthwhile. You do not need constant proof that you matter. You can experience value through contribution itself. The book describes this as having a feeling of community, seeing yourself as part of something larger rather than as an isolated person fighting for status. Lesson 12. Live in the here and now. One of the final ideas in the book is to live earnestly in the present moment. People often imagine life as a straight line, believing everything happening now is preparation for some future destination. School prepares you for university, university for a career, work for financial security, and work again for retirement. One day, after everything is complete, life will begin. But that day never arrives because there is always another destination. The book compares life less to a journey toward one final summit and more to a dance. When people dance, the purpose is not to reach a specific corner of the room. The dancing itself is the experience. Goals are useful and planning matters, but your life is happening now. If you believe life will become meaningful after you earn more money, find a relationship, become successful, lose weight, move somewhere else, or gain recognition, you may spend years postponing your existence. You do not need to have your entire future figured out. You need to live this moment seriously. Do today's work. Have today's conversation. Make today's decision. Life is created through individual moments. The courage to be ordinary. Perhaps one of the most unexpected ideas in the book is the courage to be ordinary. Many people desperately want to be special. They want extraordinary success, talent, and recognition. Why? Because being ordinary can feel like being worthless. Social media can intensify this feeling. We constantly see exceptional achievements. Someone becomes wealthy at 25. Someone travels the world. Someone builds a huge company. Someone has the perfect body. Someone appears to live an extraordinary life. It becomes easy to believe that an ordinary life is a failed life. The book rejects this. You do not need to be superior to have value. You do not need to become famous to matter. You do not need to win a competition against humanity. An ordinary day lived meaningfully has value. An ordinary relationship built with care has value. Ordinary work done well has value. A quiet contribution that nobody applauds can still have value. The desire to be extraordinary can sometimes prevent us from appreciating the life directly in front of us. Final takeaway. The courage to be disliked challenges many assumptions about happiness. It tells us that the past does not have to dictate the future. People can change. Comparison can turn relationships into competition. Seeking approval can become a form of imprisonment, and many conflicts become easier when we separate our tasks from those of others. Freedom requires accepting something uncomfortable. Not everyone will like you. You cannot control every opinion or satisfy every expectation while living your own life. The book does not tell us to become selfish. It tells us to build healthier relationships. Accept yourself. Trust others without controlling them. Treat people as equals rather than competitors. Contribute to the community and live fully in the present. Perhaps the most powerful question is not, how can I make everyone approve of me? But what would I choose if I were no longer afraid of being judged? Maybe you would set a boundary, apply for the job, start the business, leave an unhealthy situation, express your real opinion, create something, or simply stop comparing your ordinary life with someone else's highlight reel. Freedom does not mean everyone accepts you. It means you no longer require everyone's acceptance to live according to your values. And that is the courage to be disliked. Which idea from The Courage to be Disliked challenged you the most? Share your answer in the comments. And for more book summaries, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for listening.